Let's start with the euro. We've heard from Isabel Schnabel at the ECB talking about inflation risks. We get inflation data a little bit later out this morning. But what are you seeing in the euro that's of interest?
Well, I think what's interesting is the fact that it's really seen through a lot of these potential threats to its strength. It's still trading near 2021 levels. You've got this extreme political uncertainty in France, with a possible government collapse next week. You've got the far right sort of pushing for elections. And you've also got things like the Spanish budget that you were just talking about coming into play as well. There's a lot of concern there. And yet, really, we've seen it holding at these very high levels throughout. Whilst you've also, but at the same time, you've seen the longer-dated bond yields, elevated. So that risk is priced in, but not in the euro. And I think that in itself is quite interesting, particularly compared to last year when we had the French political crisis. We saw the euro sinking quite dramatically against the dollar, also against the pound, in fact. And actually it's holding up there too this time. And I think really a lot of that just comes down to the dollar weakness. And it's holding up against the pound as well, still above 86 pence. And that also signifies that it's not about the euro, it's not about sterling. It's all about the dollar weakness, which we've seen, really persistent for the last 5 days. It's up a bit today as the US comes back from holiday. But again, it's been falling for the last 5 days and considerably throughout the year.
So does that continue? Like the US is kind of back to school today. Feels like there's a lot going on. You've got a lot of politics happening. You've got an awful lot of economics happening. We've got payrolls coming up later on this week. Are we in the position where dollar weakness is going to persist? If you look at euro-dollar, it doesn't feel like a euro story at all, as you say.
Yeah, and I think there are some key catalysts coming up for the dollar. I think as things stand, that expectation that the Fed is going to cut interest rates, which has been under quite a lot of pressure to do so, it's priced in. It's very highly expected.
Yep.
Of course, this key payrolls data this week, we've also got inflation coming up. If they show a hotter inflation environment or a stronger labour market than's been expected, that could shift the picture slightly. That could make the euro and other currencies a bit more vulnerable and shift the picture for the dollar. But essentially, with that sort of macro uncertainty, lower rate environment, very likely it does seem to support the dollar weakening going forward.
Yep. What is dollar erosion doing to the gold story?
Well, we just saw gold exceed its April records. Again, April being a really interesting time because that's when all of the sort of tariff turmoil kicked off. And we saw gold ascend at the same time as well. We were seeing that dollar weakness then. It's continuing to move upwards as people move to precious metals. There is a real sort of sell the US story emerging there. But again, that could be potentially disrupted if we do see sort of weaker US economic data coming through at all, in the next couple of weeks. So I think that's really going to be the key thing to watch for the, precious metals market as well.